Ahoy, hoy, friends, and welcome to the Salon. Tonight, we are talking about Section 31, the secret, then not secret, then secret again organization, much like my sexuality when I switch jobs. In order to do so, I have to bring on my intrepid crew and talk about some fun stuff. So get excited. Let me bring on my co-host first. Trevor, how are you? Vamp while I get the presentation ready.
I am delightful. Thank you, Stan, for asking. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Beautiful, beautiful vamping.
Thanks. I did my best. And cheers to some top secret conversation.
Yes, get excited. It's processing. It's processing. StreamYard continues to process. And here it is. As always, please
Jesus, it's like data in the first season. It's just processing.
Just letting it all come in. Please, all the podcast things, like and subscribe. I know everybody's asking, how can we support this amazing podcast? And I'm glad you asked. Again, liking and subscribing all of our nonsense. Of course, on YouTube, following us on socials. You can also now subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We are on all of them, and we have an RSS feed, if you understand what that means. I don't, but I know how to put our bullshit up there once a week. And of course, we're on Patreon. If you can give a couple of dollars to support the nonsense, we certainly appreciate it. Our bonus episode, a commentary on Matt's favorite episode or comfort episode, excuse me, will drop on Monday. So our $5 Patreon supporters will have access to that, and a super fun, exciting announcement, which is kind of an annoying "this is to be announced" announcement, but get ready for an announcement of things that are coming. We're going to have merch soon. Get excited. I'm excited. We, of course, will have some apparel. We'll have some mugs, and I switched the slides on accident, but I'm super jazzed about some notebooks I put together. Whatever your rank is, you'll be able to keep your log, keep your to-do lists, and work on that next promotion. Plus, of course, a problematic gay sticker.
Insert log joke here.
Let's get those logs. Speaking of logs, Ken, how you doing?
Ah, I see what you did there. No, I don't. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And I'm excited about that merch. Very creative. Everybody needs to get all their logs in order. Very important.
Yes.
So,
speaking of getting things in order, here's Krista. How are you, Krista?
I am great. I'm coming to you from snowy New Orleans. So
yes,
that mess.
Yes, LA is on fire. The South is snowing, but the South shall persevere. Like Joanne. How are you, Joanne?
I was like, you better not say the South will rise again. But
I thought it. I was like, no.
I was gonna disconnect. So I am well.
You know who's not well? William. How are you?
I knew that was me, you fucking cunt. I knew it was gonna be me. I knew it was. I knew it. I was like, I'm next, and he's gonna make something about me being unwell, which is true. But
how dare you say such hurtful, accurate things?
What we do here.
I can't think of a segue, but here's another mess. How are you, Matt?
Thank you. Thank you. And honestly, you could have made the joke of temperatures in the South will rise again. But like,
maybe one would hope they will.
No, Ken, let him sit in that silence.
It's fine.
Let him look only at Joanne's face right now, at the disapproving look that is flowing through the interwebs.
Honestly, it's what I deserve.
Here, let me help. Joanne.
Thank
you.
Well, apparently Joanne was about to start the whole thing off today, so I need to be more respectful. So
that should be a meme. That should be a meme right there. Joanne, that look. That should just,
If somebody could gift that for us, please.
Oh, yeah. I might clip it. Joanne, you'll have approval, of course. All
Just
right,
say don't.
friends. Well, tonight we are talking about everybody's favorite part of the franchise, Section 31, and I can't wait. But before we get into it, we simply must set an intention.
Girl, is it just going to be like this all night?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just checking.
I'm in a mood. It's Trump's
good.
America. Things are weird. Let's go.
Ah, I had to
You're not
bring that
wrong.
up.
It's the California's burning. It's snowing in the south, and thank God climate change isn't real. But
But this pussy's still tight.
Yeah, so
Thank
that's,
God.
that's
Problematic gay alert.
It's not really all that
I
problematic.
already had a glass of wine and a nap,
fine.
so we're on one
fine.
tonight, kids.
Me too.
In honor of the least controversial topic in Star Trek, Section 31, I thought it'd be fun if we went around the room and everyone shared who in the franchise who was never revealed to be a Section 31 operative would have made a good one, in your opinion. So who's your secret operative? As always, I will start us off by saying I'm borrowing someone from 2 series. So I didn't go straight to DS9, but TNG and DS9. And I'm going with Dr. Keiko Ishikawa O'Brien herself, because I just think she's a badass. She's a botanist. She's a mom. No one would ever suspect her at the playground of actually being an operative. But in all of the wonderful ways, I think she would actually be quite good at it and have a vested interest in keeping the Federation safe. And so in addition to all of those things, I also think that a morally ambiguous organization could use someone who has a very centered moral compass. So for all of those reasons, Keiko O'Brien is my answer. Now I'd like to hear all of your answers to this wonderful question. We'll start with Krista and work our way around the room. Krista, my dear.
I'm not going to lie. I spent a stupid amount of time thinking about the answer to this question. And
I love it. Appreciate
concluded
it.
that I could not just pick one. So I have 3.
Okay.
But here, hi. But
there's one of them now.
Oh, boo. But here is why. Because I think any spy organization needs to have, any spy organization needs to have the analysts that collate information and they interpret the information and they sort of, they don't do the active killing.
They need a Ruth Evershed.
They need a Ruth Evershed. Exactly.
Yeah.
So my Ruth Eversheds are, the first one is Mott, because he's a hairdresser, and there's not a single hairdresser I have ever encountered that did not have all the tasty tea, like just flat out had all of it. Number 1. Number 2 is Robin Leffler, because she's the perky sidekick. She's cool under pressure. She's inquisitive, but she gives off this sort of innocence that you wouldn't imagine her working for a nefarious organization. So she can kind of come in as the stylist. And then the last one is a must. The last one is Pelia, because she's 300 years old. There isn't anything she hasn't done. And she's kind of widely regarded as eccentric. So again, not somebody that you kind of like batshit eccentric. So not somebody you would think is a risk. Meanwhile, she's just fading into the background and absorbing all of the information, and then you're fucked. So those are my 3. They work together as a group. They're like a Charlie's Angels, but they don't wear pantsuits or drive muscle cars.
And one of them's blue.
I imagine Mott was like Farrah
and one of them
Fawcett.
is Charlie. Yes, one of them is blue. But this is the whatever century it is during these shows. So there is There is no gender.
I love it.
I really want to learn how to do
Or
some
love.
more fun editing because I think Will's right. Mott with Farrah Fawcett hair, just
Yeah.
putting that over this section would have been
That
great.
wig.
I'll work on it.
This is what I'm talking about.
Joanne, my love.
So my choice is Mr. Reginald Barkley, but after the Cytherians fully integrated him, because he was hooked up to the computer, and he was all confident, and people would discount him because he's weird and creepy and bumbly. So, but he's really smart and adept and engineering. He'd be an ideal, I think.
I feel like you were describing my college years. Weird, creepy, bumbly. But I love it. Will.
My pick would be Uhura. Languages, fan dance, dominatrix by night. I think incredible. I think she would be the best person to be on Section 31, like hands down. Like she would be the one that I'd be like that. She's up to something for sure.
You're giving me Stefan vibes right now. You're like, this spy agency has everything.
Oh,
And
this spy agency has everything.
Yes,
Ma in a
God.
Farrah Fawcett wig. Uhura doing a fan dance. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's this.
Robin Leffler playing with a game that is almost orgasmic.
Everyone's staring into the warp core. Yeah, great. Yeah, I could do it. Maybe I'll do that at Comic-Con, or not Comic-Con, at the convention. I'll be Stefan, but I'll be in a Starfleet uniform. This Enterprise has everything. Saucer separation. Yeah, I could do it.
A barber.
It has a barber and a Farrah Fawcett wig. A telepath who seemingly doesn't have telepathy. A pansexual man with a beard. Yeah.
A 300-year-old antique stealer that can get you weed.
A bald man obsessed with his doctor, but also antiques. He plays the pan flute. Yeah.
okay, we need to send
I'll
Jake
work on the
Nerd-
impression. I was getting more smoker as we went through, but I'll work on
Perfect
it.
wife that was born out of a glowing egg by mistake.
we have a redheaded doctor who has sex with a candle.
We need to send Stefan. We need to send Jake a link to Stefan.
Yeah,
A
it's an
woman
SNL
living
character.
on a planet.
It's a
A
Bill
woman
Hader
living on a
SNL.
planet whose tits incited an insurrection.
Yeah, I think it's great. Anyway,
Ken,
I don't know how to follow.
since
any
we
of that.
derailed this whole intention.
Jeez. And I was going to say Ahura too. So, but I have to stick with the original series. We got the toss earlier out. I would say also I have potentially three. One is Marlena Moreau. What?
okay. I was laughing at something else. You're fine.
Just focus and work
Um,
your way through it.
Bring us home.
Marlena Moreau.
Uh-huh.
Not from the mirror universe, but from the regular universe.
Right.
I would also say I was going to say Ahura, and I'm going to throw someone out there who is really weird, but Section 31 is Harcourt Fenton Mudd.
Oh yeah.
I like it.
Yep.
That would be like having Vash though. Like you can't be sure that he's not working an angle to benefit himself while working the angle for Section 31.
And that
Which would be
makes
admittedly
all the
entertaining.
better. Yeah.
Which would also
absolutely.
be entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
1000%. Matt, dear.
All right. Well, Joanne took mine. I was thinking Barkley because what if that whole bumbly idiot unsure is just a cover and he's actually like a super great spy, and that's why he was part of the Pathfinder project, and like there's you can ladder up that way. But I'm doing a Krista because as I was sitting here I thought of two other ones that I really enjoy. One Ensign Cito, she didn't die, and they actually recruited her into Section 31 because they're like, you're an ensign, you're malleable, you're dead. So very like Boimler, into, and actually that would be a great parallel with Section 31 in both lower decks. And I would love to see and have it come. And I think that this could even be, you could even argue it's a headcanon and it's not a big stretch. I can fully see Admiral Nechayev like being in on Section 31. Like, she was like, Admiral Ross was okay working with them. Admiral Nechayev is actively helping them. Like, whatever needs done for the betterment of the Federation, like, not gonna fuck around. Yeah.
We're not only dressed alike tonight, but we're going to pick the same admiral, because I thought of Nechayev earlier today, so I love it.
There's no
Fearless
doubt
leader.
in my mind. Yeah.
Fully agree. And we'll get into it, but in some of the books, Admiral Ross has more of a role within them. But I agree, Admiral Nechayev definitely fits the Section 31 vibe. I'm also in agreement with Will and Ken. Uhura was who I thought of initially, but they've already said it, so I'll say another. For similar reasons that Matt brought up with Cito, I think Tasha Yar would make an excellent Section 31 agent. In fact, what if Commander Sela is a Section 31 agent?
Ooh.
Right?
What?
Right? Get that movie into production, please. And thank you.
And give Denise Crosby both salaries
All of her flowers.
to make up for what they did to her throughout the entire thing.
1,000%. Excellent intention setter, as always. The intentions are set. Let's dive in. Let's talk about Section 31. As you all know, there's a new streaming movie that will be available on Paramount Plus mere hours from now. I'm super jazzed about it. And a quick programming note, this Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific, we are going to be gathering to talk about our first impressions of the movie. So be sure that you are subscribed so that you can join the fun there. But tonight, we thought it would be fun to talk about what we've already seen of Section 31. And we'll weave in and out of the books and Deep Space Nine and Disco and Lower Decks and Picard and like all of the things. So it's all on the table. This is a fun, fan favorite part of the franchise that we are going to deep dive everything that we all universally love, including leather daddies. Let's get into it and talk about the introduction of Section 31 in Deep Space Nine with the leather jackets, with director Salon. Who wants to share their initial impressions of the introduction of Section 31 as a concept in the franchise? Does anybody remember where they were and how they felt when they... Trevor, you're shaking your head. I want to hear from you first. Where were you and how did you feel when you learned of Section 31?
No, so I mean, a Niner from Jump, so I was watching it as it originally aired. I just remember feeling confused about how I felt about something related to Star Trek, because I'm like, I want to like this, but I don't know if I don't like it or if I do, which made me more intrigued, because it had been a while since Star Trek did that. We had original series, we had movies, we had TNG, and we were halfway through Deep Space Nine. And just the idea of Star Trek on a space station was controversial. So that they were introducing this agency that wasn't really an agency that was also potentially doing bad things was very confusing. And that made me like it more, because I like change. I like having my perceptions challenged. I like having my thoughts and ideas challenged. And I liked having to work through something. I mean, watch any episode of TNG, and most of the time, with the exception of the episodes we talked about last week in our The Captain Did What segments, most of the time the decisions and choices seem pretty clear. The moral path is one thing, and then the thing the bad guys are doing is another. The ambiguity of 31 was intriguing. And so I just remember for the first time in a very long time watching Star Trek and going, huh? And I liked it. I liked that I was questioning my track. And I still do.
And apparently it was there the whole time. Like that was part of the rub, right? It's like, oh, this organization has existed the entire time and we just didn't know. And obviously we'll get into the quirks of that as we move forward. But I agree. I also remember thinking at the time, you know, like we had all of these bad admirals. That felt more of a bummer to me than the idea of a Section 31, because I was like, oh yeah, you know, there are nefarious forces no matter where you go, which of course is kind of a bummer if you know the hope of the Trek future is that we are better than this. We no longer need this. But again, I remember thinking like in 90 whatever, I was like, well, we had all those bad admirals. So like an organization that works behind the lines, I guess makes sense. Like, yeah, Starfleet would have a CIA kind of thing. Yeah.
It made it more it made it more real world, which I know a lot of people
Yeah.
push against because they go to Star Trek for fantasy. But the bigger and broader Star Trek gets, the more you realize that the Federation is a moral utopia, but not all of their enemies are. So it's not fair warfare. Like not everybody's abiding by the Klingons at times, you know, granted, most of the time of Star Trek, Klingons have been at least friendly / ally / not enemies. But when at war with Klingons, they literally eat their victims. Like, so it's not like everyone's playing by the same rule book. So it just kind of made sense that this would happen. It also made sense that some of our more straight-laced Starfleet folks were like, wait, this seems wrong and we're going to push against this. So that intrigue of like there being infighting about the whole concept seemed fun to me as well.
Yeah. Matt, I know you have thoughts.
So, okay, if we're talking about like in my personal thoughts on it, out of universe, I liked the idea and the concept. I thought it was fun. I don't remember where I was the first time. I've seen it so many times and I've watched DS9 so many times. I don't remember my initial reaction, but it made sense. Like after, especially when like you're getting into the Dominion War and things like that, when you see it in DS9, it makes sense. Now, when you take it out of that light and you look at it in like the TNG light or the Enterprise light, well, actually Enterprise it fits too, but I have some like that tone of TNG is where it doesn't fit, and I think that's where a lot of people like just can't put their head in that mind, because like if you have this tone of TNG that's so hopeful and optimistic and everyone's good and all this, like it goes into that whole fallacy we talk about with like the flagship. Like this is the flagship. Of course, everyone is hyper competent. Of course, they get like all of these assignments. So it's almost like we're finally like with everything in DS9, you're finally getting to see another like element of it. So I actually really like it for that. I will say, I think it. We can get into this more. I think it's gone a little over here with it. I think we're using it as an excuse to do a lot of things that don't necessarily need to be in Star Trek or encouraged in Star Trek, but that's another deeper well.
Well, like the girl in the well, get down there. We'll meet you in a moment. Will.
Yeah, I have some complex feelings about this because at the time, I like when it was introduced into DS9, it makes a lot of sense because they're dealing with a war on a scale that like the Federation and Starfleet have never engaged with, and like you have to kind of meet all avenues. And then as I've gotten older, I appreciate that like in the 23rd 24th century that like humans are still not infallible. There's still this kind of dark streak that we're still working through, and we're still kind of, while it's secret in a way and all this stuff, that it's still there, that humanity still has room to grow. We're not completely infallible at this point, which makes for more interesting storytelling. I will agree with Matt that I think it's been overused. I kept bringing me back to the idea of like the xenomorph and aliens. The more we learn about them, the less scarier it is. Like I've always felt like Section 31 should have been scary. Even in DS9, I was like, this is not scary enough. Like it should have been one guy who's always in shadow, and you're just like, who is this? And you go over and it's gone. Like it should have been really fucking scary. And someone who is just completely masked in mystery, you don't know anything about it. You know a handful of things that are, you know, a handful of things about them, and you're just like, oh, what is this? So the more we've learned about Section 31, I feel like the more we've pulled teeth out of it and made it less nefarious. Because I think as much as Gene Roddenberry's idea that humans ascend to our better nature and move past this, I think sometimes nature overrides nurture, and we have to put that somewhere. And I think that's kind of the idea of Section 31 in a lot of ways. And DS9 deals with a lot of that and the kind of psychology of humanity and people and all of this. And you have to have it. But like, as we get further into it, and like, as we'll probably discuss the more appearances as it shows up, I feel like we started with the movie Alien, and then we really ended up with, if anyone watched the Alien movies, Alien Covenant, and you're like, this isn't scary anymore. They're not scary. It's not
like
scary.
The more we
The more we learned about the Borg, it was like, these aren't interesting anymore. It was scary that they were in robotic, you know, cyborgs that were bent on assimilation and taking technology. That was scary. But the more you learned, it's like, okay, like that is like cool. Transphasic torpedo, take it out. Like it wasn't that big of a deal once we got to Voyager, you know. Picard kind of works with that, but like, yeah, I think I would have been really happy if Section 31 ended in DS9, that we never saw it again. It felt like it did wrap up and it was done by the time we got to the end of that. But the idea is great. I think that it's easy for writers, and I think it's been easy for the series going forward, especially Discovery season 2 and some other things. And like, I haven't seen Section 31 yet, and I love Michelle Yeoh, and I'm giving it the old college try, and I see what they're trying to do with it. But I think it's a trope that's getting a little misused. It was like the Klingons. It was like, I think we need to move on. Like we're retreading a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, like we'll get into it for sure. Krista, you were gonna chime in about.
I was just gonna say that, going along with what Will said, I agree with like it should have probably ended with DS9. And now this new movie, what I'm afraid of is that they sort of, like he said, take the teeth out of it, and it sort of becomes like a Gautier runway show instead of like, you know, something that's truly nefarious, depending on your styling tastes. But I've read some of the reviews, and so I'm cautiously optimistic that I'm just going to like the spectacle of it. But I think at this point, I'm looking at this like it's sort of a catch-all for like things that need to be done, but we don't want to associate it with characters that we really like. Like we don't want to sully this, so we're going to come up with other characters, and we're going to make one wildly outrageous, and she's going to kind of head it up. But it's sort of it's kind of, to me, it's going to be a lot of lights, a lot of fashion, a lot of one-liners, and it sort of undermines the whole point of why a Section 31 would be there to begin with.
Yeah,
it's not.
Michelle said, "I'll do it."
Well, I mean, you know, and it's cool. I'm going to watch it, but I'm going to watch it, but I'm going to watch it tongue in cheek. I'm not going to take it. It's purely for it. It's like watching a Taylor Sheridan show. It's like, am I taking this fucking seriously? No, this is Dallas 2.0. We did this with Dynasty, bitches.
CSI, insert new city here.
Exactly.
Okay. I really have to say, just because there was a puzzle piece that clicked for me between what Will said and what Krista said. It's that we're using Section 31. The writers are using Section 31 to do all the stuff that they shouldn't be doing in Star Trek, rather than using them as, this like clandestine, are they, aren't they, or having a movie where, okay, fine, we focus on Section 31, but it's like fucking James Bond. It is a strategic, you have these hyper operatives that are going in and doing these things like targeted. They're not just like willy-nilly blowing up everything and doing whatever they want. Like, they should be like a tactical nuke if needed, and that's when they're allowed to like work in the shadows and all this stuff. But we're hyping them up to be this like, I can do whatever I want, I'm a badass, like I got my armor and I got a suit of whatever and I can do like, it's just this like A-team style thing when it should be James Bond. And I think that's what bothers me about it, is that it just seems like the writers are wanting to write this movie that is high action packed and morally ambiguous, and oh, the characters, see, they're flawed. They're a bunch of flawed people that come to, only flawed people can be in Section 31, which is a direct quote that Michelle Yeoh used in 2 of her interviews.
Yes.
Which just, I'm sorry, I love Michelle Yeoh. This is not, it's her media training, because she says the same thing in every one, so they gave her the script to say, which is not surprising for Paramount. But like, that's not what fucking Section 31 should be about. And that's what pisses me off, because they clearly don't care about making it the like secret, is this a real thing like that was established in DS9?
Only I have to push back on one thing, only because you've triggered one of my like top 5 fandoms. Because there are never explosions and shiny things in James Bond movies.
No, but I mean, like, they don't have. He's not like yeah, I'm fine with explosions and shiny things, but I'm saying like he always at least starts as like clandestine trying to get in, and then it all goes to shit, and that's fine. But like, they're hyping this whole thing up as a, we're getting this ragtag group together,
Guardians of
where
the
it's like
Galaxy.
they should be, yeah.
It's
Which is
Guardians of the
another,
Galaxy.
yeah, it was another Michelle Yeoh quote. It's sort of
Yeah.
like Guardians of the Galaxy in the Star Trek universe.
And I hate that.
And my last James Bond rant is just that Bond himself is deeply, deeply flawed
Sure,
as a human being. So,
and not because he's pansexual, just to be clear.
no, because he's
Every
slightly
we encourage
sociopathic.
it, yeah.
Yeah, every iteration of Bond and the books, especially. So I want to answer about when I first saw this Deep Space Nine episode, I was like, ooh, that's Colonel Stewart from Die Hard 2. That's really cool. That was my first thought because I was like, what's the bad guy from Die Hard 2 moving over and being this really badass character in Deep Space Nine? And I thought that they did a good job. I mean, obviously, I was been a Star Trek fan, you guys, the TOS era, and I was thinking Section 31 would fit in perfectly in the TOS era. Although obviously they never did it, but they certainly can. Books did it. The books did it. And I thought that, to Matt's point about the next generation and the flagship of the Federation and everything is so hunky dory, and to some extent, I think Section 31 was the writer's pushback to Roddenberry's utopia kind of BS, right? We can't have any conflict, nothing. It's got to all be. It's like, okay. Section 31 was like the antithesis to that. And I think that was part of the whole thing. And the idea that they had lived through the Federation history of Starfleet, I thought was really cool. And that, it was very much James Bond. It was very, very much this covert organization, right? And I think they did take a lot from the James Bond stuff. And you saw little hints of it, even with the original series to some extent. That was a little bit of what Gary Seven was going to be, right? From Assignment Earth. Could have been a little precursor to Section 31 kind of thinking. If that was designed to be obviously a spin-off series that never happened. So anyway, I thought it was very cool. I thought it was a very cool thing to do. I do agree with what people have been saying. They've taken it way, way out of whack, and as Matt was saying, all the way off the screen to where it should be. But what they did with it on Deep Space Nine, I thought was great. What they did with it after Deep Space Nine is somewhat questionable.
And I'll even say, like, Enterprise. I know after Deep Space Nine, we're talking chronologically, but like,
Yeah.
I think Enterprise did a fairly good job, because it was, the the Federation is new, they're getting established. It's like it fits with that. And we had Mako on the ship. Like, I'm not saying that it's never like it's always been done poorly. I think that it definitely has been done well. I think even there are aspects and elements in Discovery that I think they did really well with it.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, they probably do have the best technology because they have no moral like qualms doing all the testing that you need to do to have these really advanced things. But to Will's point that in the chat earlier, like, we went too far by giving them a fleet. Like, it was just these are supposed to be operatives, not an entire branch of the Federation.
It made me think of, so we're all over the place, which is fine.
And not new.
It was fine. I was about to like try and rein it in like 2 minutes ago, and I was like, you know what? No, this is the Salon. Let's have chaos. This is also why I was wondering. I should have advocated for option B and how we talked about this, because I was thinking if we went in chronological order of how the Star Trek universe has Section 31, like there's some sense there. Like I can see some sense in like it was a secret, then it wasn't, and then it needs to be a secret again, and like. Again, not to get too political, but the way that our memory in this country works, like it would not surprise me for something like Section 31 to like just fade away in the memory if they started acting in a way. For example, in Deep Space Nine with the Cardassians and the Obsidian Order, it's explicitly stated that they are not allowed to have ships, and so they didn't do like a callback to that, but I can see why after the incident with Control, them being like, we're taking the ships. you're done doing that. Here's some leather jackets and go back in the closet where you belong. Along with the gays, we'll see you in Discovery.
So Malcolm was both a spy and gay.
Potentially.
Well, they knew he could keep a secret.
Yes.
That's why his hair was so big.
And the torpedo.
I think the only reason he never became a full-time operative is that he just kept interrupting everyone every time they tried to answer his question. Oh, wait, that's his podcast.
Ooh. And they will never be guests here. Just kidding.
Like
I won't show them the clip.
Like that was ever a possibility.
You never know. Crossovers.
I will say one thing that I think to Stan's point and sort of to answer Matt's question, like I didn't mind the oh, we have a fleet and then just kidding, we're only 3 guys and oh look, we have a fleet again. Like that throughout time didn't bother me as much as it bothered me that all Discovery had to do was give us like 1 or 2 lines of dialogue to explain, oh, in order to provide oversight, Starfleet officially commissioned 31. And then it could be decommissioned later. But like it would make sense that if you find out this clandestine organization exists that's completely off the books, you might want to make them official to rein them in and provide some level of oversight and rules around what they're up to, or control around what they're up to. But speaking of control, they also could have put a line of dialogue in that somehow the formation and size of 31 was the result of control slowly taking over. But that was never revealed either. So there were opportunities to make it make sense, and they just didn't.
And I mean, we've all said this before, me especially. Like, I love Discovery. I know we love Discovery to varying degrees, but where we have criticisms, it does quite often boil down to, 1 line of dialogue could have fixed that. Like
literally, yes, all the time.
Tell me why you can't beam Admiral Cornwell away. Tell me why, like just give me 1 more line, like Trevor was just saying. Will, you were gonna step.
Oh, I was gonna say I have a rare headcanon moment.
Ooh!
Everyone get ready.
Everybody gird yourselves.
What if the like big Discovery Section 31 fleet was to make the Federation and Starfleet think that Section 31 was gone? So it was all a big ruse. It was all like a big thing for them to be like, oh, that wasn't actually Section 31. It was them like faking something, like making a big scene. and then they were actually still doing other. It's like, you know what I
Oh, yeah.
mean? I'm not
You saw
explaining it
those
well.
ships blow up. We dismantled
Yeah, like,
it.
oh no,
Don't
we're
worry.
gone. Not really. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like they got all these ships and shit. But that's like some headcanon bullshit that like wouldn't necessarily. They had so many ships. It was crazy. I was like, why do they have so many? But we'll get into
That
that, I
battle
guess.
scene was
But,
very like, look what we can do.
yeah, it was like, why there were so many
Why is
shuttles.
she
I was
not
like,
in a
none of you
shuttle?
should have this many shuttles. Like, what is
Yeah.
it? And a couple of them look like a dildo. It was a lot. It was a
The
lot.
only thing
Instead
will
of
say
doing
about-
that, have fewer of them, but have the Enterprise actually move.
Yeah.
Okay, but
It
I
was
will say, here's
too
my
much.
pushback though. My pushback is that is one of the only times we see those capital ships acting like capital ships.
True.
So often
That's
we
true.
get Picard season 3 USS Titan firebombing through things, and those, like, I will say that was my favorite part of it because they used auxiliary craft and you actually got to see like the Enterprise was moving and swooping around, but it was taking its time so that it didn't run into any of the ships, and because like it's a much large, like it actually felt the size that they always say it is. Like I wish that and like that, and the only, no, that doesn't matter, but I did think that was the one good thing about that battle. Now, endless streams of shuttles that just keep being shat out of the shuttle bay was absolutely ridiculous, but
Joanne, you look so excited.
It's not that I'm not excited. I'm having a difficult time focusing. But I think Section 31, well, it makes sense to me. And I think part of the challenge is, I mean, we can debate whether they do it successfully or not, but I think part of the challenge is that it's situational, right? Like they become, in my mind, they become big, in times of war, invisible, or, sort of life and death, galaxy level stakes. And then in other times, they become, less big, smaller, I guess would be the word for that, right? So all of that doesn't bother me. It makes sense. And there always has to be, the people who do the things that no one else wants to do, and who can do the dirty work. And I don't understand why that's so offensive, to us or to the universe. Um, because it's a necessary evil. It's a necessary evil. And evil's probably even not the word, but they're very necessary. And I might be a little sensitive because I think, I'm one of those persons, not like that I'm morally ambiguous, but I don't mind asking the relevant question. I don't mind making the difficult decision. I don't mind, talking about your mother to your face, right? I'm going to do what needs to be done to kind of serve the purpose. I think where they go awry is that, I guess I'm also in the middle of watching what am I watching? Babylon 5. And the last episode I watched, it was they said this thing and I was like, "Oh, that's it." It's like when you become obsessed with the enemy, you become the enemy. And I think that's what happens, right? Or that's what they rail against, because people, again, like I said last time, people are terrible and don't know how to handle power and don't know how to, to govern themselves. And they go bananas and do stupid things. But at its core, Section 31, I think, is necessary and makes just a lot of sense.
And that's our show, everybody. Joanne is right. Nothing more needs said. Let's go watch the movie. Well said, Joanne. Matt, your rebuttal. I'm just kidding. I'm not calling you out. So we brushed on it a little bit, but I want to bring this back up and give it some space for those who have seen Enterprise. I know that's something that we're going to be getting into later on with the Salon and forcing some people to watch it for the first time when we do a thumb war. But the little tidbits of Section 31 that we got in Enterprise, did anybody have any additional thoughts that they wanted to share? Malcolm Reed and his clandestine. not fully loyal to Captain Archer until he was William.
I would say that was the most surprising arrival of Section 31. Like, because I didn't think it, like they said it went back far to the foundation and all the formation of it and everything, but like seeing it like act like a Section 31 agent suddenly show up wearing the exact same like leather BDSM outfit, it was like, oh, I felt like as a kid it was very surprising to me. I was like, oh shit, like they weren't kidding. And then kind of bringing Malcolm, who kind of felt like the not the moral compass, but someone who had such high standard for themselves into that, and then to corrupt them in that way was, I thought, the most interesting thing they did with him. They did very little, but like the most interesting thing they did with him. And I think it being utilized, it was utilized in a way that I felt it pushed it, like DS9, like that, and DS9 I think did it right because it helped push characters into uncomfortable situations and push story into places that people that like Star Trek wasn't used to. So like especially with Julian, who kind of felt like the golden child who could do no wrong. So like having him work with the, this evil section of the Starfleet, but like, yeah, I thought it was like, actually, I still remember the scene when the camera pans out, when it pulls out and that Section 31 agent is just standing in the street. I still remember that. Like, it was still shocking to me as a kid. I was like, oh no, not these guys. So it was very interesting. I think it was probably the Enterprises that had done some like interesting stuff, but that was one of the things that I felt it like touched on canon in a way that felt really purposeful.
I did feel that choosing Malcolm was just did a huge disservice to what they could have done with Travis Mayweather. And I'm not saying that just because I want to see Anthony Montgomery in a leather outfit, but I do.
Are you though?
I said that's not the only reason.
Problematic gay alert.
It's not problematic, but I'll take the credit. It's like they had ignored his character for so long, and then they were like, oh, let's introduce 31 into Enterprise. We should give it to one of these other guys that we see on camera constantly. Like, for God's sake, we don't know. I mean, we knew a little bit from 1 or 2 episodes of exploring his family's ship, but like we know virtually nothing about Travis Mayweather. But we know Malcolm Reed's like allergies. His food allergies were a topic of an entire episode. Like, why do we need to have him now part of this clandestine organization? It was just annoying. That said, I agree with everything you said, Will, about him being a good option. I just would have loved, and I'm not saying that Travis was so much of a goody-goody that it would have been weird and out of place, but it would have given him more dimensions than he had, other than his rippling dimension.
Yeah, I see your point, but it felt like the Section 31 agent played on Malcolm's sense of service. Yes. And yes. I never got that really from Travis. It was more of a like whimsy for space travel. So, and like him being kind of a birther and him being raised on starships and like freighters. So I see your point. It would have worked either way, but I think pulling on Malcolm's service eventually, like as the episodes go on, and like all of the the damage to his relationship with Archer, I think it would have made it. I see your point. I also go, I think they picked the right one in that instance.
I've found the best of both worlds. Fast forward to like almost the end of season 4, and we find out that there's been a handler on the ship the entire time, and his Section 31 handler has been Travis the whole time. Kind of like how Worf was Rafi's handler. Like that would have been a cool. And
we find out because they're having sex.
Yeah, he accidentally uses his secret name.
Yeah,
he says,
"Oh, we see them touching phase cannons."
What?
That's what they call the phaser in that
Problematic
show.
Gay alert.
Yeah, I agree with you both. I think Malcolm was the right choice, but it is wild, and we'll get into this when we talk about Enterprise, how little service any character other than really Archer, but a little Archer, Trip, to a lesser degree to Paul, but more than the others. How little that they got in the longer seasons that they got, and now it still sucks with like the Discovery crew and only getting 10 episodes, so it's harder. But yeah. Any additional thoughts on Section 31 in Enterprise before we dip back into Discovery for a moment? Real quick, these divas. Plenty has already been said. I do want to one point that I wanted to bring up again, because I've got Discovery season 2 on in the background right now, and I've been thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, they really did. I love Discovery, like I said, but I do think they used Section 31 a little too much, and they used the mirror universe a little too much, like some others were saying earlier. But then as I'm watching this, I'm remembering, oh yeah, this was going to be a series. And so Discovery had more of the mirror universe to bring on this character and more of Section 31 to soft launch this series. And we'll certainly talk about it on Saturday, and we'll conclude this evening with some potentially some thoughts about the movie, what we're hearing and seeing thus far. But I'm trying to keep that in mind as I'm going into the movie, that this was a retooled series. And so a lot of things that you would get to do with 10 episodes, you can't with 100-ish minutes. And so I'm trying to temper my expectations. And as I'm watching Discovery season 2 again, I'm thinking about what I liked a lot more than, well, man, they're using so much Section 31. It's way too much. It was a little too much, but for the story they were telling, it made some sense, and it was soft launching a new series that ended up getting shelved. That's all. I do like the badges. But also, like Una says later on, the flipping them open is the best part. Or no, it was Pike that said that, but she agreed.
And also,
it was
let's
cool
just point
seeing
out
it as like this is the first time they have them, and like it was interesting.
But also, you're a secret spy organization and you have a different comm badge.
But in Disco, they weren't a secret spy organization.
But I like that
But
their
they should have
phasers
been.
look like the ones from Star Trek 3 or 4. And then like all of their technology seemed a little bit ahead. I was like, ooh, I kind of like that. Like they had a tricorder and the guy flipped it open. I was like, oh, I was like, that's cool. And then when he was like, what is that? Like the comm badge? He goes, what the hell is this? Like it was so fun. Anyway, yeah, I like that their technology was a little bit ahead of everyone else, like their personal stuff at least. Because Salon was popping in and out of places and people couldn't find him, and I'm like, that shit's fucking cool. Got that transwarp beaming or whatever.
Speaking of transwarp beaming, I don't have a visual for this, but Star Trek Into Darkness. Let's get into that darkness. What are our thoughts about Will's movie?
Boo, tomato. Yeah, I think it runs in the same problem that Discovery does. I think they were like, oh, evil people, but like it makes the premise for it kind of makes sense. Like, oh, they're worried about the Klingons, so they have this Section 31 and they dethawed this guy who is like can think different than them, but not real. I don't know. Anyway, girl, it's a lot, but it was just a reason to do it. And like I don't know, like it was just kind of I just kind of figured. I was like, I have problems with it just generally, but it just seemed like they went, oh, like the writers went, that's something we can use. That's something we can use. It just doesn't make sense as a whole that Section 31, the agency at that time would have known how to deal with the Klingons and wouldn't have been like, let's dethaw this guy who's been in space since the 1990s and see if he can help us make evil weapons. Like, bitch, the fuck he will. Like, all he did was make the ship bigger. That's all he did. Like, ooh, it's bigger and faster. Fuck off. Like, okay, it's bigger and blacker. I can get that too. It's not that hard. Well, it will if I'm around, but you know.
I was right there.
I did it for you, Krista. I did it for you. I did it for
Gay alert.
did it for you, Chris.
That was the spot right there.
And Joanne again with the looks.
Joanne is not pleased with this episode. I feel so jealous. I'm so
Joanne's
sorry,
not
Joanne.
drinking. We're all
She
drinking.
needs more coffee.
I'm
I think
never
Joanne-
drinking.
I
So
think Joanne might actually.
so
of
that's
all
not
of
the
us-
reason. Right.
Of all of us, Joanne could be Section 31.
Oh, that's the disapproval.
Joanne is
Yeah.
our Section 31.
Yeah.
She has to
The
be the
opposite
things
of
that will
Section
benefit
31.
us. She has to be the one that's responsible for the things that we don't want to do, like keeping shit together and being the voice of reason.
Joanne is the Michelle Visage of Salon. So we all know that when we get the disapproving looks,
That
it's
is
just because
true.
she loves us and wants us to do our best.
There you go. Yep.
Be better, Joanne.
No.
Quote from Joanne, not Joanne. Be better. I'm gonna stop.
You got it. Yeah.
Like, stop relying on that body. But yeah.
Either that or she's the center square, like Paul Lynde, but that's okay. So
Or
See,
Whoopi.
I'd have said, yeah, no, I wouldn't have gone
But
Paul
it
Lynde.
said Whoopi.
Let's talk about Lower Decks. So we got Section 31 in a fun way. Post Deep Space Nine, they're still clandestine, but a little more known. Transporter clone Boimler gets conscripted into Section 31, and then, as we saw in the final season, their critical mission he was in charge of with a Defiant class vessel and other universe to Paul, Garrick, Hollow, Julian, and the Harry's Kim.
Harry's Kim.
Thoughts on Section 31 in Lower Decks?
I think it was, as always, the best portrayal and most true to Star Trek that Section 31 has been, because I think that the people writing Lower Decks know how to use it correctly. And I think that was a big boon for it. But it also helps perpetuate the idea that, yeah, during Deep Space Nine, Voyager, TNG, it was in the shadows. Like, it was still, whatever happened before, we can go back and forth about that, but at least kept continuity. That, like, they don't have a fleet yet. Like, yeah, he got a ship, but at the same time, like, it was one ship. Like, you had one mission. He was just the captain. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was great.
Joanne, would you like to talk about why it wasn't? I'm just kidding. I mean, that's a
Why are
callback
Joanne and
to
I
contrarian days.
I don't have enough commentary on you might as well be asking me about Enterprise on Lower Decks. Like, I
We'll get
watched it, but I didn't watch it enough to talk about it.
No
Sorry.
worries.
I will say only Lower Decks could successfully, only the writers of Lower Decks could successfully, and performers, make 31 funny.
Mhm.
Not to say that there probably won't be a couple of chuckle-worthy one-liners in the movie that we're going to all see tomorrow. I'm sure there will be, but making an organization that was depicted as ominous as 31 pretty fucking funny is a thing that only they could pull off. And they made good use of a transporter clone.
Yes.
Instead of killing it.
Speaking of, I don't know, the books, our friend who follows the Salon and has retweeted and reposted, the wonderful author has written several books that include and are about Section 31. I thought worth an honorable mention in the beta canon of it all, with Dr. Julian Bashir risking it all to become part of Section 31 with the goal of taking it down from the inside with his not at all creepy patient girlfriend, Serena. Does anybody remember that?
Who here hasn't been taken down from the inside?
Did anybody read any of those books, or was it just me?
Well, did you want to name him? Because you described him, but you never said his name.
Yeah, you never
Did I not?
No.
Can you all not see it there?
I can't read that shit. I'm old.
David Mack.
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, I can't. I rolled as well.
Wait, I clicked the wrong button. Did anybody read those books? Was it just me? He also has a bunch of books, including some from other franchises, and including many Star Trek books that were not focused on Section 31, but they are lovely. My favorite of touches on Section 31 was definitely Collateral Damage, which dealt with Captain Picard's interaction with Section 31. Not that he did anything. It's cool, everybody. Everybody be cool. Matt, I see your face. Everybody be cool. Jean-Luc is still Jean-Luc. He interacts with Section 31. He does not become part of it. Anyway, we're about to wrap up. We've got some final thoughts and the tallies. We, of course, have Section 31 available to stream in just a few hours. We're all going to watch it as soon as we can, and then we will be back Saturday on this channel at Salon Trek here on YouTube. So be sure to like and subscribe. Early reviews are in, and I will say they're making me more excited about the movie, because this movie was pitched as something different, and the early reviews are confirming that it is something different. And I like it when Trek does new things. It seems like this movie is as pitched, and so
Yep.
I will
give you that.
hold other judgment until we actually see it. I'm jazzed. All the new Trek, and we're all gonna watch the Trek that we get in the meantime, so that we get more. Because if this movie doesn't do well, they're not gonna think, oh, we should do a different kind of Star Trek movie. They're gonna think we should not do Star Trek anymore. So any Trek that comes out, I'm gonna say let's do it. I'm excited about this movie. I'm excited about Strange New Worlds coming back in a few months. I'm excited about Star Trek Starfleet Academy coming, hopefully this year, but probably next. Anyway, press release after press release, sounding statements later. Trevor, give us the tallies.
There were 4 problematic gay alerts. There was 1 tosser alert, and there were 2 canon alerts. I gave 3,100 bonus points to Will for the Stefan of it all. 31,000 bonus points to Chris Garris in the comments, because better late than never. 31 bonus points to Ken for actually remembering Die Hard 2. 310,000 bonus points to Matt for shatting shuttles. 31 million bonus points to Joanne for making some damn sense. 310 million bonus points to Krista for showing up to a 31 conversation looking like a goddamn 31 operative. And last but not least, minus 310 bonus points to Stan for forgetting to email the show link.
That is fine. That is fine. I am now back in the negatives, and it's fine. I'm not tracking it. I'm not marking that in my notebook for later. It's fine. It's fine. I don't feel betrayed at all. Y'all, lovely as always. Thursday evenings are my favorite time of the week. I love spending time with my fellow panelists. I love seeing y'all in the chat. Thank you very much for joining this nonsense. Please do like and subscribe, comment on our videos, share them with your friends. Let's work that algorithm and get this nonsense in front of other people. And we will see you on Saturday, right? Because there's an incident that we need to discuss. Saturday, 3 p.m. Pacific. Until then, please live long and prosper.
All hands abandon ship. Proceed to the nearest evacuation zone immediately.
Insert post-credit scene.